Everybody, Jeff Miller here from Target Test Prep, head of GRE instruction. Today's video, I want to share with you some game-changing tips about what you can do to score a 330 or higher on your GRE. Tip number one, get a baseline score in place by taking a practice exam. But before you do, look at what's tested on the GRE, build your foundation, then take that practice test. So here's how you do it. Look at everything you need to know, math and verbal, just a general overview. How are questions asked? There's things like quant comparison on the math side. There's other tricky things like multiple choice, multiple answer questions. On the verbal side, you've got a lot of vocab-based questions. You've got critical reasoning. You've got reading comprehension. I'm not saying to be an expert in these topics, but learn enough of it so you know what's going on when you take that practice test. You'll take the first one from MBA.com. You'll see how you do. That's your baseline score. And then you're ready to get moving with your study plan. Number two, create a personal study schedule. This is overlooked by so many GRE students. Why? Because they just think, hey, I'll just fit in my GRE prep whenever I need to do it. No problem, but that's not going to work. There's a ton you need to learn for the GRE. If you're in school, if you're a working professional, there's just not that many hours in a day unless you make those hours. So you got to sit down. You need to look at your schedule. If you're working full time, do you go into work later in the mornings and end later at night? If so, study in the mornings. If it's reversed, maybe you do your studying at night, or heck, maybe you do a combination of the two. If you're in college, look at when you have most of your classes. Study on the days when you don't, and also incorporate GRE prep into your schedule just as you would for any of your college classes. Once you have that schedule in place, then you're good to get going with your GRE prep. I always recommend at least 18 hours a week if you can swing it. That's 2 hours each weekday, 4 hours each weekend day. Yeah, it's a lot of time, but remember, this is a finite process. So you want to be as efficient and you want to pound the pavement as much as possible so you can get this thing done and it doesn't linger over the course of months and months and months. So once you have that schedule in place, you're ready to get moving with your prep. Number three, use great GRE prep materials. So you've taken your baseline score, taken your practice test to get your baseline score. You have set out your study schedule. Well, now you actually need materials to learn this stuff, right? Well, there's a variety of things out there. Of course, I'm going to tell you my favorite course, Target Test Prep. Check it out. We have a free trial. Most courses offer trials. Use the trials. Ours is full access, so you can take a look at the study plan. You can see exactly what is included in the course from beginning to end. You can make a decision on what works. You can do this for other courses as well, because at the end of the day, you need one main source of materials that you're going to be using to help you get to your score goal. And when evaluating these, and we'll talk more about this soon, look for courses that have detailed study plans or roadmaps. Without that, you're just going to go into your prep every day, every night, wondering what comes next, what are you going to be working on? And to be honest, eventually you're just going to get frustrated by that process, and you may even give up your GRE prep altogether. So the key to great study materials are find something that keeps you organized and on your path to your 330 plus score goal. Tip number four, make sure you're following a topical and balanced study plan. This is huge. So I've already talked about it. When you're getting your prep materials together, you want them to have a study plan, right? Well, that study plan should be topical in nature, and it should do a number of things. First and foremost, it should allow you to build your foundations first before working your way up. If you're jumping into very, very hard stuff without having your foundation set, I promise you that's going to make life difficult. That's going to make life challenging. Believe me, you don't want that, right? What do you want? You want to say, hey, I'm going to focus on the basics of a topic and also just focus on that topic. That's the nature of the topical studying that we talk about. So linear and quadratic equations, you start off with the basics, single variable equations, multiple variable equations. Then you get into the basics of quadratics, factoring, foiling, etc. You work your way up and you only focus on those topics or those micro topics within linear and quadratics. When you're done, you only practice those topics. Why is that important? Because then you can see after doing topical reading or learning where you're still weak. Where are those gaps? What do I have to fill in? You spend time filling in those gaps and then you rinse and repeat down the line. Now, although we're saying do topical learning, it doesn't mean you do all math and all verbal. You want to split the difference. You want to do some math followed by verbal, followed by math, and ping pong back and forth between these topics. Because if you just do all math at the beginning of your prep and then 3 months later do all verbal, trust me, you're going to forget a lot of stuff from beginning to end, and that's not something you want to do. So you focus on topical learning and practice, but between going back and forth between math and verbal, and that's how you're going to master what you need for the GRE. Number 5, review, review, review. So we talked about topical studying. How does review come into play? Well, review comes into play because your study timeline isn't going to be a week. It's going to be months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, whatever it is. What you learn at the beginning, you have to make sure you still have learned at the end. So how do we deal with that? Well, a good way is do a ton of review. There's different ways to do it. I hope you have notes that you're making as you learn this content. I hope you have flashcards. Those are great because you can get what I like to call quick hit study sessions in, where if you're commuting, you're on a lunch break, you're sitting at the doctor's office, you can pull out the flashcards, whether physical flashcards or on an app, and you can nail those. You can say whatever, math or verbal, especially with vocab. Those are great ways to continue to study without sitting at your desk. Then there's mixed review problem sets. That's important because if you're going to get holes in your foundation as you're moving through your studying, holes that maybe you didn't know were there a few weeks ago, that's going to make those come out. You're going to see where those gaps are. And just as you do with your topical practice, you're going to fill in those gaps. So what you're doing is topical studying, some review, topical studying, review. And by the end, you're going to be in a place where whatever weaknesses would have crept in, you're going to make sure that those weaknesses are gone. So you'll be ready by test day to get your 330 plus on your GRE. Tip number 6, don't forget about your error log. Review is important, but so is your error log. Why is your error log important is a good question, right? It's important because it's going to tell you why you are making certain mistakes. For example, can you not read your handwriting? Are you rushing? Are you messing up words that maybe you should know, but you don't know, or you're just getting them wrong in the context of a GRE verbal question? This is important because if you can figure out why you're making mistakes, you're going to be able to rectify that. The issue is if you don't use an error log, you don't see what you're getting wrong and why. By the time you get to your GRE, you're going to make these mistakes and it's just going to get compounded because if you're making mistakes early on, because let's say you're rushing and you're being careless, well, that's going to get even worse with every passing day, with every passing week. By the time you get to your test, you're going to take it. You're certainly not going to get your 330 score goal because you're making the same mistakes. So get an error log together and make sure that you're defining why you're making mistakes. But here's a key part of this. Your error log will get big quickly. So how do you fix that? As you get stuff down and you start to understand these errors and you get 100% set in the questions that maybe were in your error log, start to remove them because you don't want your error log to balloon to a place where it's just unmanageable. You need to be able to go into your error log, feel good that you're learning every time you go in. So just be smart about it. Remove the stuff you understand. And yes, look at it weekly so you can make sure that these errors are going to be totally gone by the time you take your GRE. My final study tip is this. Make sure to save all of the, except for the first one, ETS practice exams for what we call the practice test phase of your prep. You will have taken one at the beginning. It's going to give you 4 left. Give yourself about a month, plenty of time to take those practice tests and be smart about how and when you take them. If you had a rough day at work, don't come home and jam in a practice test. Take it when you're fresh. Try to even take it when you're going to be taking your GRE so your mindset can be the same when you sit for it on test day, but be smart about it. And then use the data appropriately. Look at what you got wrong. Ask yourself why you got them wrong. Go back to your prep materials, fill in those gaps, whether it be verbal or quant gaps. And ideally, you're getting close to what your score should be by the time you get to your GRE. If you're not, then you may have to reassess what's going on, why you're not hitting your score goal. But if you're following the advice I've given you here, hopefully you're very, very close to where you need to be or there or exceeding it prior to sitting for your GRE. All right, so I've given you some helpful tips of how to get started, how to prep for your GRE, and I want to give some final tips about the week leading into your test and test day itself. So if you've been studying for months, that last week is an important week. You don't want to overdo things. You may have one test left. That's fine. Take the test. Then focus on light studying. You may want to cram. You may want to think of every single topic that you're not 100% in and become 100%. Trust me, you need to be mentally fresh for your GRE. If you are not, what'll end up happening is you'll get to that test, you'll be cloudy, you won't be feeling good. So that means, like I said, take it easy. Study your notes, study your flashcards, maybe do some very simple mixed problem sets leading into test A. Nothing crazy. Remember, if you don't get your score, it's okay. You can always retake it if you need to. So you don't want to put this enormous sense of pressure on yourself. So just do things right in that final week. Don't take all that hard work and throw it out because you want to cram leading into test day. And if you can do that, you can follow the prep advice I gave you. There's no reason why you can't score 330 plus on your GRE. All right, I had a blast talking to you about things you can do, tips you can follow to get a 330 plus on your GRE. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, subscribe to our channel. Leave comments of videos you want to see in the future. We are more than happy to do them. We just want to get everyone getting to the place where they can crush the GRE, get that 330 plus. So until next time, thank you everybody for watching. We will talk soon. Happy studying, everybody.